All right, let's get into it. We've all seen this happen, right? A super promising indie game pops up, the community goes wild, and boom, the hype train leaves the station. But what happens when that excitement gets a little too ferocious? Today, we're going to break down the reaction to a new game called 1348 Ex Voto.
This is the line that just hooks you. It's right from the game's trailer, and it immediately sets up this deeply emotional, high-stakes quest, a desperate mission to save someone you love from a world that's completely falling apart. It's dramatic, it's personal, and man, does it work.
So, what is this game that's getting everybody so worked up? Well, let's start with the basic idea, because you got to admit, it sounds amazing.
The game is called 1348 Ex Voto, and it's coming from a small, brand-new Italian studio called Sted Leo. It's an action-adventure set in 14th century Italy, which, as you know, was a time of just incredible turmoil, plague, the works. And that setting, it's everything. I mean, listen to this premise. It just checks all the boxes for an epic adventure. You play as a young, female knight named Aeta, you're on this desperate journey to save Bianca, and you're doing it in a land torn apart by bandits and disease. Plus, they're promising a combat system based on real historical martial arts. So yeah, you can see why an idea like this just catches fire.
But here is a really crucial piece of information to keep in the back of your mind through all of this. The game is targeting a 2026 release. That means we are a long way from seeing a final, finished product. And that's super important for understanding what comes next.
Okay, so with a setup that strong, it is no surprise at all that the reaction has been intense. But as we're about to see, it's the level of that intensity that's really become the core of this whole conversation.
On the surface, it sounds great, right? A new studio gets a ton of buzz for their first big game. What could be wrong with that? This kind of crazy hype can create a really dangerous gap between what fans are dreaming of and what a small studio can actually, realistically, deliver.
And that right there brings us to the heart of this analysis, the clash between the incredible promise of the game and the reality of what's been shown so far.
Vulcanero's main takeaway is that the game, at least from what we can see in the trailer, looks acerbo. It's his great Italian word that basically means raw, unripe, or unpolished. In other words, it looks exactly like what it is, a project that's very, very clearly still in development.
So you've got this contrast. On one side, you have the promise, which is huge, amazing setting, fascinating story. But the reality, the footage we've seen, shows things like raw animations and AI that definitely needs more time in the oven. The key takeaway here is that while the ideas feel massive in AAA, the execution we're seeing right now is very much that of an indie project.
The animations don't have that super smooth, expensive feel you get from a giant studio.
Frame rate issues or a bit of jank in an early trailer, that's not the real issue. That kind of optimization stuff often happens way at the end of development, so it's not a red flag right now. The bigger concern is about the fundamental systems, like the animations and AI.
So if it's not really about the technical polish yet, then what is the actual danger here? Well, it all comes down to the crushing pressure that comes from unrealistic expectations.
Because really, that's what all this ferocious hype is asking. Is this tiny indie studio secretly about to drop the next massive, world-changing AAA blockbuster?
It is not. And look, that's not meant to be an insult to the game at all. It's just a reality check. This is an indie game with an indie budget, not a $100 million production.
We've all seen this story play out before, right? A fantastic indie idea gets hyped up to impossible levels, and then when it comes out, it gets unfairly compared to giants like The Witcher or Elden Ring. That kind of insane pressure can absolutely crush a great game that was never trying to compete on that level in the first place.
So instead of just pointing out a problem, the source actually offers up a solution, a much healthier way for all of us in the community to engage with a project like this. It's basically a call to calm down a little.
The whole idea is to protect the game from the very enthusiasm that could wind up poisoning its reception down the line.
So what does that constructive support actually look like? Well, it's pretty simple. 1, keep following the project. Stay tuned in. 2, show your genuine interest. Let the devs know their idea is awesome. But 3, and this is the big one, try to avoid piling on that excessive, unrealistic pressure.
The whole goal is to find that sweet spot, that healthy balance. It's about taking all our excitement and channeling it into positive support, not into creating what the source calls deleterious pressure, which is just a fancy way of saying a harmful weight that can be especially tough on a small, vulnerable team. And this whole situation really leaves us with a much bigger question to think about. How can we, as a community of gamers, get better at this? How do we balance our incredible enthusiasm with a healthy dose of realism so we can actually support creators in the best way possible? How do we champion these ambitious indie games without accidentally setting them up to fail under the weight of our own expectations? It's definitely something to keep in mind the next time a cool new trailer catches your eye.